Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Copilot Lead Speak. I'm Sarah Young, and thank you for joining us today. In today's episode, I've got the pleasure of speaking to some of the amazing folks here at Microsoft that are working on Copilot for security. With me today, I have Mark. Welcome back, Mark.
Thank you.
And Harmony, who is joining us for the first time.
Yes, thanks for having us.
Now, Mark, we've already spoken to you on an earlier episode, but Harmony, would you like to tell the audience who you are, what you do, and why you're here to talk to us today?
Yeah, happy to. So I lead the user experience and delivery of the app for Copilot. I also do the applied responsible AI work.
Awesome. That's pretty interesting. So, well, let's get into it then. So, Harmony, you're doing responsible AI or RAI in the product. Can you tell us a little bit about how RAI principles are being incorporated into Copilot?
Yeah, there's like three key things that we really focused on when we were thinking about how to bring RAI to life within the product. The first one is making sure that users understand how the system is working and why it's doing what it's doing. The second is making sure that they have control so that they're able to modify it, change it, make it do, control it. As well as the third one is around giving feedback. So giving feedback to the system, giving feedback to us so that we make sure that they're constantly in the loop and they can help us to improve.
Interesting. So, Mark, I reckon you can probably add a little bit more detail there as well, I suspect.
One of the great things about Copilot for Security is that it is both an app as well as a platform. So we work hard at the platform level to build the capabilities necessary to project those principles throughout the user's experience. And that includes for those that are building on top of the platform, beginning initially with our own product teams here at Microsoft, and of course expanding out to our third-party teams and also to even our end customers.
So can you talk a little bit about how these principles that are being embedded into the product are helping protect against potentially harmful aspects of AI?
Sure, yeah. One of the things, I'll give you an example. So one of the things that we think about that we're concerned about is catastrophic omission, which is essentially like when the user prompts for information, is looking for data, and what it brings back is a subset or maybe not the full picture, and making sure that that's clear to users. So we've spent a lot of time on that, and Mark's going to talk a bit.
Indeed. So one of the benefits of using a large language model is that it can speak very confidently about things that it may not actually know about. So if you have a plugin that returns, say, 20 results, it's intended to return simply the first page of the results. But the large language model could interpret that to say that there are only 20 things that I found. And in fact, in some cases, if it finds no results at all, it may simply say, your organization is all safe and protected. And that cheerfulness can, in sometimes, be misleading.
Yeah, so building on that, we took a lot of time to tune and tone the responses so that instead of saying, you're all good, it's more clear and more straightforward, essentially saying, I couldn't find something, or it couldn't find something that matches that result. And also in the case where it's sort of truncated results, or maybe there's fewer results displayed, showing the numbers that are the full total data set versus what's shown, to make that really clear to users, and so they're understanding exactly what's coming back to them. One of the other things that we have in the app is source citation to make it very easy to trace back to where that data is coming from so they can verify, so they can get more information.
So that sounds like it'll be very easy for our customers and end users to be able to understand and not be overconfident in the results that Copilot will be giving them.
Yeah, that's absolutely the goal, is to give them the right amount of confidence, but not too much confidence, to understand how the system works and where mistakes can happen or where things that may be confusing can happen.
And that's really one of the benefits of building on top of the Copilot for Security platform, is that those capabilities become intrinsic and in some ways are embedded within the flow so that those who are creating experiences can focus on bringing the data from the source systems, guiding the LLM to render that data in a meaningful way, and then benefiting from the aspects of the platform that are ensuring those pieces are met.
So some folks have expressed concern about over-reliance on AI or over-trusting it. So could you talk a little bit about how we've implemented things in Copilot to help people understand what it's doing, I suppose?
Yeah, I'd say this is probably one of my favorite things that we built actually within the app, which is, so if we think about traditional working with LLMs, a lot of interfaces have you submit the prompt and then you get a response. That's true for Copilot, but we put a step in between within the experience, which is essentially where we expose the steps that the system took to get to the answer, how it interpreted your prompt, how it understood the prompt, and then where it pulled your data from. And the whole goal of that is to make it so that users can see that, so they're understanding that and they can kind of interrogate it and say, does that make sense to me? Does that seem like a logical flow? Is that how I would get there? Then that will give them some sense of whether they should kind of have more confidence in the answer or not.
And that's especially important at the scale that we are endeavoring to operate Copilot at. At one point, Copilot had well over 100 different plugins that it could reason across. That number, of course, is growing all the time. And that creates the need for a rather sophisticated system to decide which plugin is best suited to meet the user's prompt. And the process log provides us a great way of projecting transparency about how we are reasoning across the user's prompt and choosing which of myriad plugins we want to use to implement that. And then also describing how we're invoking that plugin and giving some clarity over why we chose that and what kind of outcomes the user would expect. It gives them the opportunity to audit it, to be part of the process, and to recognize when they may need to restate their prompt to more precisely guide Copilot to the outcomes that they're looking for.
That sounds great. So if, for example, you didn't like Copilot's reasoning about a prompt that you'd asked it, would it just be a case of asking it in a different way?
Yeah, exactly. So we have it set up so it's very easy to go back in and edit. You can refine your prompts, you can rerun it. The whole goal here is that we anticipate, especially early on as you're getting to know the system and learning how it works, that you might need to refine and rerun and experiment with different phrasing and different wording to get where you're wanting to go.
So we've talked about the input and some of the reasoning when people are using Copilot, but let's move on to the output. Now, there's been a lot of talk in the AI world about the safety of output generally. So are you able to talk a little bit about what we do specifically in Copilot for that output safety?
Sure, yeah. So we actually use Azure OpenAI safety systems within our platform as well. So that means as it's generating the response, it's running through classifiers, it's checking for harmful, inappropriate content, it's checking for prompt injection, or some people call it jailbreak attempts. And there's like constantly new classifiers, new systems that we're adding as we go and as they're developed.
And the great thing is that in addition to those classifiers, we also have a series of system prompts that are guiding the formatting of the output and also the structure of it as well, so that skill developers, plugin developers, can focus more on pulling the data from their systems and simply returning that to the platform. And the platform can take care of composing that in a way that is meaningful, not only to the user's prompt, but also to the context in which the user is asking that, realizing all the way what is necessary to project the right level of confidence in the system, while also keeping things mostly on track.
So probably closing the loop, maybe we might say. So the last bit of using Copilots, I would say, is generally the feedback. And I've seen it in lots of our Copilots that you can say if the response was right, wrong, okay-ish. So what about in Copilot for security? Do we do the same thing there?
We do, yeah. This is actually a really key part of the human feedback loop that we want to have with our users. And so for each evaluation, meaning every time you submit a prompt and you get a response, you'll have the opportunity to tell us, was that on target? Was that a great answer? Was it incorrect in some way? Or was it inappropriate if it was, inappropriate content kind of thing? And we really would love, the more users do that, the more helpful that is for us. We look at them. It really does help us to improve the system and evolve, assuming they share their data with us. If they're comfortable with that, that also helps us as well to continue to improve.
Makes sense. Now, I want to touch on something you said there, Harmony. So you were saying that if customers choose to share their data with us, now, of course, and quite rightly so, many customers have questions and want to understand properly what we do with data if they choose to use AI products. So I'm wondering if you could tell me a little bit about what we're doing specifically in Copilot for Security in that area.
Certainly. So at the platform level, we distinguish between feedback for product improvement separate from feedback for the model and give people the option of opting into each of them separately. For those customers who opt in to share product feedback data, we are actively reviewing that content in the context of their prompts and also in the context of their session. And one of the things that's been really exciting about this whole process is seeing all of our partners, especially our Microsoft product teams, engaging directly with those prompts, seeing how the system is invoking the plugins that they have created and using that to guide not only the architecture of the plugins that they're presenting into Copilot for Security, but also even to inform the way that their underlying products behave.
That's really cool. And hopefully that explains to some of our customers exactly what we do, because it can be quite scary, right? Just giving AI data.
It can be. And right now, you're giving it to me and to Harmony and to our product owners. And that actually becomes essential, especially because the nature of the technology. Before, somebody could say, well, I clicked on this button and the button didn't do what I wanted the button to do. Well, that was pretty straightforward. But because the operation of Copilot is actually contextual, it is considering everything that you have said within that session. It's considering the responses you have before. I've noticed sometimes I'll go to try and review feedback. I'm sure you've seen some of these too, Harmony, where the prompt that the user was unhappy with was, tell me more. Oh, I'm going to need a little more context to understand what that is. So for those customers that have opted in for that sharing, we actually can look at the other questions that they've asked and reason across that and then architect the product better to more directly answer those questions.
So some customers may not be able to share data with us, or they may choose not to. So just wanted to check for those customers, we're not saying that it's going to limit the functionality of Copilot for Security in any way, are we?
Yeah, I think that's a key question. We want to make sure everyone understands. The functionality will still operate as it does, even if you're not able to share data with us. We also would really encourage, if you're finding gaps in the capability and you aren't able to share data with us, to either file support tickets or use the community to share the scenarios that you're looking for, like at a higher level where you can decide what data you share in terms of how you describe it. But that way it still gives a signal that we can operate from and help to improve.
And one of those signals that is so important is the way that Copilot chooses a plugin to invoke and how it's invoked it. So oftentimes simply communicating to us the prompt can give us enough signal to know how we can improve that. So those may be things that have to be communicated sort of out of band for customers in those more regulated contexts. We understand that, but the prompts definitely matter and often don't disclose too much data or are easily redacted enough to where we can then build on that and communicate not only to our core engineers and our research team, but also to our partners, how they can improve how the individual plugins are presenting themselves to the system.
That's great. And I'm sure that will come as a great comfort and great news for those customers who are more regulated and may not be able to do that sharing piece. So I have another question for you both, which is, I've noticed that Copilot for Security does pop up in other Microsoft security products now. So I was wondering if you could tell me a little bit about Is that the same experience, the same Copilot? And are all those responsible AI principles the same in there too?
Yeah, great question. So starting from, it's all powered by the same Copilot. So the safety systems that we talked about earlier are still in place, and are leveraged within those products as well. And then when we work our way up to the experiences themselves for how users engage with it, we have the same principles applied around user control, around feedback, around helping them to understand how the system's going to work.
So Harmony, of course, the AI space is changing at a crazy fast pace, and there are new models and new things coming in all the time. So could you tell me a little bit about how the safety systems that we put in place here at Microsoft and for Copilot are evolving as the technology changes?
Yeah, I'd say there's kind of two things. One thing I will say first is that we are constantly running our own testing and monitoring to see how they are performing over time, to see where there are improvements, see where there are regressions, where maybe we need to focus on doing some additional tuning or add additional safety layers. And then that leads me into the second part, which is really that as the technology is a really innovative space, so too are the safety areas in terms of developing new techniques, developing new approaches, continuing to enhance the approaches that we have for our security context. So it's a really exciting space to be working and innovating and finding new methods.
And I'm sure it's keeping you very busy as well.
Very busy, yes.
Mark, Harmony, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah.
Thanks for having us.
And thanks to all of you at home who've been watching. I hope you found this episode of Copilot Leet Speak really interesting and have learned a little bit more about AI security. I know I have. And I'm Sarah Young. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one, and take care.